Most of us think that we have to choose in our masculine and feminine energies, right? Are we going to be soft or are we going to be strong? Are we going to be yielding or are we going to be assertive? Are we going to be feminine or masculine? Which one is me? The truth, my friends, is a lot wilder than that. The masculine means nothing without the feminine already living inside it. I learned that from today's guests. And the feminine can't flower without the masculine already holding its shape. Isn't that a beautiful way to think about this? I am so excited to introduce you to today's guests and to have a conversation about how we find the masculine and the feminine in one another. Because when we go looking for one, we will find the other. Welcome to another Catalyst conversation in the Relationship Revolution. Here, we challenge the unquestioned assumptions about love, life, and leadership, disrupting the patterns that have been keeping you stuck and revealing the truths that no one has taught you. Here, we activate new ways of leading our relationships consciously, courageously, differently, and dare I say, better, so that you can have the relationships and the life that most people only dream of. I'm so glad that you are here. Are you ready? Let's get into it. So this month, we have been exploring a topic I called Beyond Balance, the truth about masculine, feminine, desire, and polarity. And today we're going to get even deeper into the wilderness, right? Into the place where these two energies stop being opposites and start being one dance. And I love this metaphor of dance. I use it all the time in the work that we do with couples. And so our guests today are experts in the dance of the masculine and feminine, and they are going to take us where we have not been able to go yet. Let me say clearly, I'm not talking about it, when we talk about masculine and feminine, I like to clarify this before my episodes. I'm not talking about a prescription for one or the other, or a way of being for the feminine that is necessary to support the masculine, or a way of being for the masculine that is necessary for the feminine to exist. We know, and the whole premise of this month's topic has been the fact that the masculine and feminine live inside all of us, that there is a spectrum and a movement we can create in these experiences. And today we are opening the door to more than just movement between a polarity, but a movement in dance that integrates both of them. And our guests are not people who just teach this integration. They live it together every single day in a very beautiful way. And you're going to love them. Before we get any further, though, I want to take a minute to introduce myself for those of you who may be new to me or to this work. My name is Dr. Jenny, and I am an award-winning relationship mentor, speaker, author, intuitive guide, and I am proudly a relationship revolutionary. My mission is to revolutionize how most of us think about and go about our relationships, and to redefine what it means to love so that we may unlock and experience the true power and possibilities of our relationships. Because nothing, truly nothing, impacts the quality of our lives more than the quality of our relationships. And we are in relationship all the time, including our relationship with ourselves. Relationships, I believe, are the infrastructure of everything else we're building in our life. But most of us have never learned how to do them well, let alone how to lead them consciously and effectively. Much of what we have learned not only doesn't work, it's also part of what keeps so many people stuck and unhappy. So this revolution starts to change this. I'm talking a great global healing through love, a return from separation and into wholeness, a paradigm shift in the way humanity relates, how we love, and how we lead, starting at the most intimate levels. In these catalyst conversations, my goal isn't just to give you insight, my friends. It is to wake something up within you so that you may be a part of living this revolution too. Now, our guests today are the lovely Christine Renee and Jim Macdonald, who are partners in life and in practice. They are the co-founders of Pink Rose Tantra, where they teach people how to move energy through breath, sound, and movement so they can reclaim what they believe is our birthright, bliss. How would you like more bliss in your life? Yeah, that's where we're going today. That's what becomes possible. And Christine and Jim can help us see the way. Now, Christine brings over 20 years as a shamanic Reiki priestess, and she is the founder of Moon Rising Shamanic Institute. And Jim brings decades in Tantra, philosophy, and chakra dance facilitation. Together, they are living proof of the very integration that they teach. Two very different energies choosing each other every single day. Christine and Jim, my friends, welcome to the Catalyst Conversations for Relationship Revolution.
Oh, thanks for having us here.
Wow, at your intro. I wanted to dance to that.
Thank you. Right? Like, it may be a little long, but it is full of fire and passion every single time I share it again. And I knew when I first learned of you all and you reached out with interest in this podcast that you needed to be here in this conversation. So I'm really excited to have it.
I'm excited to be.
I know that you two have a story that is worth hearing. And before we get into like your big paradigm shift that you're here to offer, I was hoping that you could share with me and with our audience how you each found your way here to this work. Because I don't think that anyone plans a life like you guys are getting to lead and support others in finding for themselves.
Yeah, I think it definitely is a journey and a process, and so much divine blessings come out through it. And I think for myself, I've been in energy work for a really long time. My father was doing Reiki when I was a kid. I was doing Reiki and helping mamas birth their babies as a 20-year-old. Like, I have always been very much in the women's world, and I absolutely love my foundation with Reiki. And through trials of life, shamanism came in and helped me find new ways of supporting myself through connection of spirit guides and power animals and new ways of moving energy. And from there, I really feel like what's led us into the relationship revolutionary really was my introduction to Tantra. And I was at a women's ayahuasca Tantra retreat. And I remember doing this breath work, and it was specifically a Tantra move the energy through your chakras, breathing, sounding, just really in your own energy. And I was having this full body orgasm, and I was like, there was no genital touch or stimulation. And it was just like, every woman needs to know this. This is now my new passion. Yes. This is incredible. Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we breathing? Why aren't we moving? Why aren't we sounding to elicit this great power within us? Right. So I came into Tantra as a solo practice of learning for myself, learning how to go, okay, I know energy movement. This is no surprise to me. Bringing energy in through the Reiki pathways. And now I'm bringing energy up from the earth, which I've been doing through my shamanic practices for years and years. So it's now I'm bringing it through this inner flute. I'm bringing it through my chakras and then moving it around with intention. And that's was kind of like the start to like the spark that brought me forward. And well, Jim was teaching chakra dance, and I ended up in classes and having tantric conversations afterwards. And now we're here. But I'd love to your side of the story is much longer, I feel like.
I'm going to try to not make it much longer, but but thanks, Christine. Yeah, your story is really different from mine. My dad's a Methodist minister, and I came in from a religious standpoint. And what do you do in a religious household? I studied philosophy. Like that's what we talked about. We talked about big questions in our household. And so I studied philosophy and nearly got a PhD. And what was happening back then was the Iraq War started happening. And I was living in Washington, D.C. And I felt like I needed to be out in the streets. So I was all but dissertation and left academia and went and became an anti-war activist. And I became a social justice activist. And I was an anarchist revolutionary, so to speak. So the revolutionary thing means something to me, right?
Yes.
But what I found out in the streets was a lot of well-intentioned people who did not know how to stop recreating the dysfunction we were seeing in society. So yes, we're fighting against war, but we're also fighting against each other. We're standing up for supposedly for women, but the men in our group aren't good to the women in our group, right? I saw a lot of sexism. I saw a lot of the same abuses. I saw us not walking the walk because we didn't know how to walk the walk.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Right. So that's what that, and also my personal life, I was getting in a series of pretty codependent relationships. I was afraid of being alone. I was scared. I was not embodied. I was not trusting the love of myself. I was not seeing my full self for who I was. So those two streams came together, and I had a wonderful woman who is my Rolfer, who is my body worker. And she's like, I think you'd be good for Tantra. And I was like, normally that wouldn't have meant much to me with my Methodist background. But this time it did. And I started about 12 years ago going through a program in sky dancing Tantra. And I've been studying it ever since. And that got me into dance, and that got me into chakra dance, and that got me into more Tantra. And I've been studying, and I'm actively in a teacher training program right now to be a sky dancing Tantra teacher. Sky dancing was founded by Margot Anand, who wrote the book, The Art of Sexual Ecstasy. So I found that my life changed. I suddenly loved being with my own company. I dance everywhere. I move. My relationships got stronger and stronger. I started attracting in what I wanted for my life. And I realized, oh, wow, this was in me all along. I just needed to know how to access it. So everything feels a lot more functional than it did. And I want everybody to be that functional.
Yes. Yes. What beautiful stories. And I'm so glad that Spirit led you both on these journeys and to one another, so you could be here in the world doing this work, because it's so important. And I love, Jim, that you speak to the ways that we can be so well intentioned in creating change and creating revolution, but that too often we repeat patterns and programming that doesn't work and that can do harm because we don't have a model for what it can look like differently. And the idea that we can learn and integrate something different, the idea that we can love our own company, that we can move our own energy, that we can experience bliss is I imagine a world where everybody knew how to do that, how to access their own bliss, how to be more intentional about where their energy is going and how they are connecting to themselves and to one another. It's just a much better world. So.
I believe we were born that way. We were born to be blissful. This is not something we might get if we're lucky. We are born to be blissful. And the way I know that is that the ways we get there to get there isn't from somebody giving us stuff. It's from stuff that's generated within us. And if we do those things, we can be blissful, because that's what we're meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely agree. So, okay. Now I started this episode by sharing one of the things that you all had said yourselves, right? That really just I felt so deeply and freaking loved. You said that the masculine means nothing if it isn't already understood through the feminine, and that the feminine can't flower without the masculine's structure. Can you unpack that for our audience? Like why can't we separate masculine and feminine? You know, like most people see them as a binary, as very different things. How are they connected?
Do you want to take the first crack?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because oftentimes when we go into this work, into this, okay, I'm going to develop and mature my inner feminine, it's coming from a lack, right? There's this recognition that I'm missing part of who I am. There's something that, and what if we came into this awareness of I'm whole just as I am, and all of these different parts are here, and it's not because they're separated out. You know, one of my favorite ways to look at the feminine and the masculine is through the chakras, but they're inside of us, right? So if we have the divine feminine, the sacral, and she moves and she flows and she does these wonderful things, can she, if the sacral with the fire is not there to meet that energy, right? And how do these two places and spaces come together?
Solar plexus.
Solar plexus, what did I say?
Sacral.
Sacral.
It's okay.
Sacral, solar plexus.
Got you.
Solar plexus. Thank you. I appreciate that. Right. And so it's like recognizing that we have these energies within us, and there is no way to separate them. And I think when we come from that approach of I'm in lack, there's part of me that is missing, and I'm not worthy to do this work, then you are trying to approach things as a fix-it model. Right. And if you actually come to this place of taking radical responsibility for your emotions, radical responsibility for I'm going to do the work and love and accept all of the different ways I show up in the world. How then does the feminine get to flow and dance, knowing that there is the foundations beneath her, that there is the structure, there is the containment, and how can I do that for myself? Right? Like, I think there's the way in the world in which couples come together of like, I need you to fit so that we fit together. Right. And what if there was more of like, I know how to contain my own energy, and I know how to hold space for myself, to let my inner flow be expressive, to be that wild self, and know that I'm safe, and I'm providing from who I am and what I want. And those two are having this magical dance together. And I'm going to pass it to Jim, because he's got more of the, I don't know, the philosophical side.
Sure, but I hope you feel me when I say it.
Absolutely.
Yes. So that's a good setup of what we're trying to get. But I want to go even deeper into these things. So there are a couple ways, like when we say feminine and masculine, I think we just assume we know what each other means. But I don't think that we always use these words in the same way. So if we talk about, for instance, as she was, the chakras, if we're talking about the sacral being the feminine and the solar plexus being the masculine, we sometimes, so if we break it down that way, the sacral is about receiving, it's about emotion, it's about nurturing, and the masculine is about activity, it's about fire, it's about your gut instinct and your action into the world. But there's another way we can conceive of it. So in the Tantra tradition, they often break it into Shiva and Shakti. And unfortunately, Shivas were thought of as men and Shaktis as women. But if we think of it as a process within ourselves, Shiva means consciousness. Shakti means energy. Well, those sound like interesting differences, but if we compare them with the chakra view, if the solar plexus is fire and energy, but Shakti is energy, or not, and Shakti is energy, you've got the masculine principle of the chakra being almost the same as the feminine principle of the Shakti, right? So how do we deal with that? I'm not sure I deal with that. Like I just accept that there are these definitions and we just have to be clear of what we mean. That's one point. So different notions of feminine and masculine. But let's just focus on Shiva and Shakti for a second. So consciousness versus flowing energy and consciousness. Let's say I go to Christine and I'm really sad and I want to express all my emotions and say, I'm really upset. You know, this podcast interview didn't go so well. I'm really upset. Now she could, now she's taking on the Shiva role. I'm expressing, I'm giving that Shakti. She's taking on the Shiva. What if she was like, she could just take it, say, okay, I hear you. Let's move on. I'm a hollow bamboo. But that's not going to help me out. What's going to help me out is if I know she accepts that larger part of me. Her Shiva has to be able to be flexible to the wholeness of me. Well, that movement, feminine concept within the masculine, right? We've got the movement, the growth. I don't know if I'm making sense. Am I making sense?
I think so.
Yeah. So we've got the Shiva. The Shiva's holding, but the Shiva holds by expansion, flowing, allowing me to be me. If the Shiva is just rigid, there's nothing to bounce off of.
Yeah.
So think of these things as opposites, but they're not really opposites, because even though there are different roles, the Shiva and the Shakti are clearly different from each other. My energy can only be allowed to flow if the Shiva itself is itself a flowing container. Flowing is a feminine concept, right? So the masculine has to have that feminine concept within it. And in reverse, the feminine has to have that masculine. If we don't know what I'm feeling, if I can't discern what I'm feeling, if I can't express, if I can't give it some definition, then what is it? It's energy, but it's nothing that has any clarity to it. Form. So there has to be that Shiva element within the Shakti, right? So we've got both of these things going on at once. And I think I'm talking too much. So
No, I love this. I think it's a really helpful perspective in understanding the way that the feminine contains the masculine and the masculine must contain the feminine, because without some of the energy of the other, what I'm hearing and understanding, one can't exist. Right. It's like, so one of the ways that I have found most helpful to when someone described masculine and feminine energies is like that the feminine energy is like water flowing and the masculine is like the banks of the river containing it. And what I'm hearing from you is like that in reality, those riverbanks need to have flexibility. They can't just be a straight angles. They need to flow so the water can flow too. But the water itself isn't just flow, right? It has to know itself. It has to be expressed to flow. And that's the line of the masculine in it in order for it to exist. So there's always a pairing together in the masculine and the feminine. Am I getting that?
Absolutely. That's another metaphor I'll sometimes use is a building like in California that needs to be earthquake proofed. If you simply build a rigid building, it's going to crumble the moment there is a seismic event. Big energy flows. You're not in your masculine if you're just rigid, right? You need to have that earthquake give and take to be able to actually hold that space. So to be truly in your masculine, you have to also be truly in your feminine, and vice versa. There's There's no way around that. That doesn't mean, like you said, that it doesn't have different ways of expression. Of course, there's infinite ways that can express itself, but it has to have some of those concepts available to it to be fully flourishing.
And then in the practicality of it, when you come into a practice, let's say you're doing a breath work practice, you get to feel in the energy and the movement. So I'm moving, so I'm breathing, so I'm bringing my conscious awareness into where am I breathing in my body? What am I noticing? Can I notice what I notice? Can I take time to see, oh, this feeling has arisen and I'm feeling it in this part of my body. That's the conscious awareness while we're in the flow of the experience. And so they go hand in hand. They have to. If I just take out my conscious awareness and I'm just fully in my quote unquote feminine energy, I can't see how amazing the experience is. I can't have a conscious awareness of what does this mean to me, right? If I'm just going to be my water, right? I need to have the logic or the rational or the intellectual part of myself being just as honored as my full flowing intuitive nature.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Okay. So Christine, I think it was you who had said something that feels really important too in this conversation, which is that a lot of people don't realize how to embody or integrate both within themselves. And instead in relationship, and I think like the cultural discourse is that this is how it's supposed to be, that we're looking for a partner to be that, to like create that polarity, to create that balance, right? So I need, when I'm in my feminine, I'm not a great example because I'm so queer. I'm always kind of embodying both. But like if I were just trying to be in my feminine energy, I would want a masculine, energetic partner to help contain me or to help hold me and to help lead me. And that the masculine needs to be, the masculine needs to have this feminine alternative in his experience to be in his masculine. And then we get the binary. So like, as we talk about the idea of all of us integrating these energies within themselves, I would love two things, I guess, that are coming up for me. One, how do you see like the blissful integration within a expression that leans more feminine and leans more masculine? So as in like for masculine men to be heteronormative, for masculine men, what would it look like for them to embody their feminine? For feminine women, what would it look like for them to also embody their masculine? Because again, as you had said earlier, Jim, most people don't know how to do that or what that looks like. And then the other question, which you can get to, but I want to make sure that like I ask it, is what does this look like then in the play between partners, such that we don't just lose the yumminess of the polarity between people? That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take the idea of, okay, we have this masculine cis man who decides that he needs to work on his feminine. And part of it is like, are we entering that because there is an idea that there's something wrong with him, right? Like we have to have this recognition first of like, why are we doing the practice? Like, what are we coming for? Is it because I am genuinely trying to mature all aspects of who I am so I can be the most evolved, emotionally available version for myself and in my relationships, whether that's with colleagues at work or with a partner, right? And so regardless of which angle you're coming from, there needs to be this self-awareness of, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I'm broken and I need to fix something? Or that this is what all my partners have told me and there's, right? And so there is this way of approaching it where it's like, I'm doing this as a self-love practice.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's a foundational piece of how can I approach this type of work of saying, I love all of me. And just because I might be 90% my masculine and 10% my feminine doesn't mean that it makes me wrong or bad, right? It's of how am I available to grow for myself so I can be the best version of who I am if I can be more emotionally mature and tap into my emotions so that in my relationships, they can be more, you can recognize that aspect of yourself. I think there's so much for, if you take the idea of the masculine cis model, right? There's a bit of like, they're not tuned into their emotions. They are not emotionally available, right? And how can they start with, maybe the first step is, where do I feel emotions? Am I available for that? Because so much of society says suppress that. Don't feel that. It happens both ways, whether we're women bodies or male bodies, where we're taught from a very early age, don't express, be only speak when spoken to. Like, there's so many cultural conditionings, right? And so how do we come to say, if I love all of me, I love my emotions, I love my rationality, I love my mind, I love my body. And how can we approach it from that direction to start, so that you're not trying to say there's something part of me that's wrong.
Right.
Because and then as you come into relationship, because if you come in like, I'm broken, there's something wrong with me, help me fix myself, be the other part, my missing part. And this is that Jerry Maguire generation of, you complete me. And I'm just like, we need to stop.
I'm so with you, Christine.
Right. That whole thing. It's like, we need to recognize, how can I hold my own, knowing that when I come into partnership, guess what? It is going to bring up stuff. It is absolutely like, it's in relationship that allows things to come forward to go, I actually need to work on that still. There's a part of me that I love myself so much. I want to better and mature who I am. So oftentimes when I think of the inner masculine and the inner feminine, it's like, how do I mature them? What would that look like? So I love the language around maturity, rather than having this negative connotations of toxicity or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I love that. How do I mature them? I'm going to use that one.
So you want me to?
You want to add on?
Maybe I'll go a different tack, because what you said was gorgeous. For me, I want to reiterate what you were saying, that there is no one way for the masculine and feminine. I feel like that's echoed in the things you're saying. So if you're completing yourself, you're going to arrive all kinds of different ways, potentially. All I can speak to is my own experience with this, right? And so in my experience as a boy growing up, watching behaviors of boys I didn't like, I think the biggest problem I had was trying to figure out, okay, how do I be assertive? How do I have the masculine, so-called masculine quality of assertiveness without being a jerk, without being just a terrible person, right? And I had to come to realize that actually I could be both, that nothing was going to take away that sensitivity, and I could still learn to find my own assertiveness. And once I realized that, I could be assertive in all kinds of creative ways. So one of the ways is my clothing. Today I'm wearing yellow and pink. Tomorrow I could be wearing bright gold with a yellow hat, or I have all kinds of clothing. And so, and yet I do identify as this. So how do I find my own way of asserting who I am into the world, now that I don't have to worry about whether I'm too sensitive or too macho. I now can show up all kinds of ways into the world. I can dance, I can sing, I can act, or I can come to a decision of where dinner is going to be and say, let's try it this way, Christine. I'm gonna say, this is what I want, and Christine's gonna say, thanks, because I didn't want to think about that question, right? She's my go and right, like
absolutely.
You've had past partners who who weren't very assertive, and you like someone who's assertive. So it's not like I have to leave that behind. I can bring it all. I can have it all in essence. And so how that shows up can be all kinds of different ways, but that's how it shows up for me.
Yeah, I feel like there is this holding to your ideals. Like I can experience all of this for myself. I can generate my own blissful experiences. And how do I come together in partnership to say, do you want to share that bliss with me? Right? Like, how can we both experience the beauty of all of who we are and support one another? And part of this is having really healthy, sacred communication, right? Like, Jim brought up my desire, like, and I'm going to assert that. Like, part of it is really being able to have conversations around desires, fears, and boundaries, right? And having that be part of our normal everyday language. Like, yes, we could set up a ceremony for it. And if I came to Jim and I use the language, because now we're tuned in, hey, I'm afraid that if I do this, this is going to happen. I'm one, and now I'm showing up in there's some femininity that I'm in my emotions, I'm in my Shakti. And that's going to trigger something in Jim to say, okay, how do I need to hold space for that fear? And how can we communicate? Right. And so I think so much of when we come together in partnership is how can we be so authentically ourselves and be vulnerable about it? That to me feels revolutionary.
Yes. Oh, it absolutely is, because that is relationally, especially in our intimate partner relationships, where, as you named, like, shit's going to come up. And I think that the divine purpose of it, right? So we can expand and grow and mature ourselves into our best version. But yeah, like, our nervous systems want to keep us in self-protection when stuff comes up, wants to keep us safe. And so the default is rarely to show up authentically and vulnerably. I mean, like, we're lucky if we get authenticity, but then the vulnerability piece, but that is what changes the game, right? Like, when we can stay in that vulnerable, stay in that open energy, it allows connection. It allows oneness. It allows us to exist.
Right.
And that
it's easier
is
said than
revolutionary.
done. Yes,
Sorry,
it
go
is
ahead.
revolutionary. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, it's okay.
It is, but it's easier said than done, right?
Yes.
A lot of people, I think, know they want to be vulnerable. I think a lot of people are like, yeah, I would love to grow. And this is where we bring in those more somatic tools around breath, movement, and sound. A lot of times it's not our brain saying, yeah, I know I should be this way. I know I should love myself. I don't know how many years I said I should love myself, and I still couldn't feel it in my body.
Right.
And so for me, it sounds like voodoo, but or magic. It's like we're through practices of breathing, moving, sounding. I found that I started to be able to regulate and be able to be more vulnerable, right? I was able to get more clarity by noticing where energy was, like, oh, how does it feel in my midsection? They call that the solar plexus. I don't care if there is such a thing as a solar plexus, but wow, when I feel here, I feel, wow, more assertive. And if I'm here, I feel my breath, and I feel like I want to open my arms and fly, like all these things. Or, oh, I feel really stuck here, and beginning that process really can help us open ourselves up. Of course, it's a chicken and egg problem. How do you get people to do that? Sometimes is a problem, but once you get them going, I find that the process works.
Right. And so much of that is like the integration. Like, we can have the conversation. Now I'm having the big emotions. And how do I move that energy through my physicality? So there's a balance in that as well, where we come into the embodiment space. How am I embodying? Maybe I'm dancing, maybe I'm doing breath work, maybe I'm doing a chanting practice. So there's all different kinds of ways to feel embodied. Like, I'm noticing what is happening in my body.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we do this work and we're moving the energy through the chakras, the stories might show up. A story of going, there's the trauma, I hold it here. And sometimes it's just the emotion, I feel heavy and stuck here. And do we necessarily need to pick apart the story, or do we just breathe, move, and sound through it to notice what comes after it?
That. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think that, and as a trained therapist, I can speak to the fact that, right, like that a lot of the therapy historically was anchored in an insight model where we need to pull apart the story and process it and go deep into it. And I think there is really something important to be said about like noticing the story and having moves that we can make in the dance of life for like what to do now with it, to process it through and move it through us and get to the other side, as opposed to staying in the energy of it, which I think can reinforce it or grow it sometimes if we're not really clear on how we are metabolizing and moving it.
It's really interesting if you have a story, and let's say it's some trauma from your past, and then you decide to dance, and you're dancing, and you're breathing, and you're letting out the whatever the feeling is, whatever is going on, and then notice how you feel afterwards. Maybe there's a change, maybe there's not. Do it 2, 3, 4 times, 5 times. I mean, most people that we work with notice big changes in their relationship to that story. It's almost like I see it, I'm allowing it, it's part of who I am, and through this process I realize, oh wow, there's a lot more other stuff going on, because I've started moving it, and I realized, wow, I actually like moving, and I like feeling, and there's this good feeling, and this story is here and no longer has as much power over you. It's still there, it's still part of who you are, it always will be part of who you are, but it's no longer the ruler.
It takes its charge out. I always think that when we look at emotion and we break the word, it's energy in motion, like that big capital E, it's energy in motion. And so how can we let our bodies be activated, not necessarily triggered, but how can we bring ourselves to that stretch zone, that growth area of like, I'm going to allow myself to feel and to notice and allow the energy to move the heaviness through. And how does it feel after? Notice what I notice, feel what I feel, and without suppression in that. So there will be some practices I'm bawling my eyes out. There are some practices that I'm screaming. There are some practices that I'm shouting. And if I'm accepting all of who I am and loving all of who I am, I'm going to allow myself to be in my bigness of emotion. And when I come to the other side of it, what it feels like is that the intensity of the trauma is less. Right? And
then if you notice, what we're talking about is moving energy and noticing, right? The Shiva principle and the Shakti principle going on at the same time within us. So that
masculine and the feminine
dance, all the crazy wild stuff that's coming up, that is that wild dance of the masculine and the feminine that helps us change our story from one that has power over us to one that's fuller.
Oh, that's so beautiful, you guys. Okay, I have one more question that's coming up for me, and it in some ways it feels like it's a little tangential, but I want to ask you, so I'm going to go with it. So what I find a lot in a lot of the conversations that I have with women in particular who are struggling in relationships with their husbands, we talk a lot about patriarchy. We talk a lot about the impact of gender socialization on men, and the harm that is caused because they are taught to suppress so much, and certainly women too. And I think when it comes to our access to both masculine and feminine, I think there's a little bit more permission for women to access both, because the masculine has been so held in such high esteem, right? Like as the way to be, right? So women, yeah, you all know what I'm talking about, but it's not the same for masculine, right? To embody feminine, or to express feminine or vulnerability or emotions has been anti-masculine and has been bad for young boys or men. And so they disconnect from that. They disallow these parts of themselves, and then they become grown men who don't know how to connect with their bodies or with their feelings, or how to express them, or even identify them, or how to be vulnerable or experience true intimacy. And so in that dynamic, I'm curious what you all have found to be helpful for men to start their work of integration and growth, and for women in supporting their husbands, typically, to move into fuller integration. Because I think there's a lot of ask in our collective conscious right now, as the feminine seems to becoming more not necessarily more powerful, because the feminine's always been more powerful, but like rising in awareness, in consciousness, in collective consciousness, right? But there's an ask now for the masculine to shift. Anyway, I hope you guys are tracking what I'm saying, because I know that I'm very articulate about it. But I wanted to ask, like, how do you find, like, what do you see as essential but like individually and as a relational dynamic to support the masculine in its maturing, in its integration?
I'll just start with, like, Tantra is a really great gateway, right? Because a part of it's like, men want to have better sex. They just don't realize that they need to be present and tap into their emotions and all these things. And so when they hear that, oh, we're going to go to, like, for example, we had a summer series, sex talks in a cacao ceremony. And there were people like, oh, it's sexy talk with hot chocolate. Cool. I'm down. Like, it's like, how can we make spaces for men to go, this isn't just going to help you be a better partner or a better human or more full of life in yourself, more alive, more expansive, but you're going to have better sex. And that oftentimes
there's a motivator.
It's a motivator. It's a motivator for men to come into the space of going, maybe it's worth doing the work to be able to have a better, more supportive, collaborative sex life. And so I know that feels like a real surface level answer, but for like a way to, it's real. And then I'm going to go, okay, and the deeper version.
No. I'm struggling with the question, because I can be really, really cynical about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think most people really should be in the relationships they're in, because you've got a lot more women who've done the work, and a lot of men who have not done the work. And you've got women and boys, you've got, they're living with with some version of their mother, which the woman doesn't want, but then through various reasons either stays in or leaves the relationship. And men are a mess right now in society.
Thank you for saying that. Right? Thank you for saying that so boldly and truthfully.
No, it's true, right? Like,
I appreciate, yeah, it is. It is true. I think I've been too scared to say it so boldly.
Most women I've known have been sexually assaulted by a man. A number of men have been sexually assaulted by men. That means walking around, a great number of the men I'm coming across have sexually assaulted. I don't even know where to begin. Like, I don't even know where to begin unpacking when we have so much hurt. Part of it feels like owning up, right? Owning up that there's a problem. And I don't know how you get to men to do that unless there are more men who are saying, this is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
This is horrible. I don't even like, like people assume I'm going to work in a lot of men's circles because I'm a man and I do Tantra. I don't like working in those circles. They don't feel like the right energy for me. I'm a chakra dance facilitator. You know how many male chakra dance facilitators there are in the world? There's like probably 2 or 3. Yeah, wow. 3 out of many hundreds of chakra dance. So yes, it's a good question, and I don't have a good answer for it. If I knew the answer, we would be doing it. But I do believe Tantra, like Christine was saying, is a good gateway because it does tend to attract both men and women. And then you see men who are much more vulnerable in those spaces and begin to open up. But it's a long road. It's a really long road.
Yeah. Well, I will say where I've come in my journey, because for a long time, I was very resistant to working with cisgender heterosexual men, right? So it was like I wanted to work with women or I wanted to work with queer folks, lesbians, because there's so much. It's so much, right? Like they're starting at, as you named, as boys, and to no fault of their own, except that now it becomes their responsibility to become aware of this and grow it, right? Like, so this is how they were raised in the water we're swimming in, so to speak. And now it's up to them to do something about it. But where I've landed is that a lot of men are going to be motivated to do the work by their women and by their kids. And that might be sex. It might be not losing the privilege and the advantage of having the woman and her love and her support in his life. It might be because he really cares about his kids and wants to be a good dad, and he's at risk of losing his kids too. But to get there, there's a path, I think, of helping women to see that they are in relationship with a version of man children, that they do deserve something better, and to empower women with the courage and the strength and the resources within themselves to take the risk of challenging and insisting that their men do the work. And that might mean that they choose to leave the relationship if he doesn't or can't. But it's like a reclaiming of power that has to happen, I think, for women.
Yeah.
That insists, that does not continue to unconsciously collude in keeping the dynamic where we are mothering our men.
Right. So I run Moon Rising Shamanic Institute, and we have programs that typically are filled by women. And I would say we have a pretty high divorce rate because women come in and they finally discover, I am worthy. I do have desires. I do know what I want. And it's not this. This is what I'm available for. And this is what I'm not. And I'm empowering these women to come into their own energy of going, you're worthy of your desires. And if you have a desire within you, why are we just letting those things all crumble away because you're living in this household that is just taking, right? And so I absolutely agree. I do see a lot of like, you empower the women who then bring it to their partners who say, you need to fucking step up. I don't know if I can say that on here.
Oh yeah. I please do. I've said so few in this podcast so far.
Right? Like,
bring it in.
It's like, we got to bring this fire, this passion, my self-worth to the women. And then they bring it to the men of going, are you going to do it? Or are you not? And, I've been in that position in my own past relationships, and, and I think that there's something about coming to the place of, for myself, I know who I am. I know what I deserve. I know what I'm worthy of, and I'm ready to ask for it. And so we have to get women to that place of going, is my desires outweigh the benefits of this relationship? Right. And so I also see a lot of women who don't have the financial means to leave their codependency relationships. Right. And it's like, it's so hard to witness. And It's like, well, at least I can give you the practices. I can give you the things that you can do for yourself to fill your own cup, knowing that the relationship in your life is going to be depleting. And the more you expand in your own energy, there will be pathways to open forward to allow you to have new growth opportunities, resources, and partnerships, relationships that are going to open for you. But you have to start with yourself.
Yeah. I love that. And it is why I truly believe that women, for the most part, women and a few great men, I'll say, are going to be the leaders of the relationship revolution. Not because it's fair or we should have to do more relational labor, but because that's where we are right now. And we have that power and influence when we can tap into that power. It's a great invitation. It's a great invitation to humanity to bring men back into their wholeness as well. And for us as women to come into our power and our worth. And by the way, if y'all encounter women who are, when they recognize their worth and they don't know how to bring it to their husbands, send them my way, because that's the work that I do. It's like, I'm gonna help you figure out, I'm gonna help you recognize how worthy you are, and I'm gonna show you how you can bring that into your relationship in a way that is more likely to bring your partner on board and help them grow and be successful, or is going to show you a lot more quickly whether that's even possible. So you can make a loving and conscious and empowered decision about whether to stay. But yeah,
absolutely.
Part of the work.
And I think that's so oftentimes what we do if we're working with people who are trying to help heal their relationships, of going from a Tantra perspective, we're really looking at the individual. We start there going, what are your desires? What are you hoping for? What do you need? What do you want? And like, let's give voice to that and going, where are the similarities? And like bringing through that clarity of maybe this isn't ideal. Maybe this isn't going to work out. And like not letting that be a disaster. I think there's so many people on their spiritual journey that, 50 years ago when you got married, it was a lifetime commitment, and I just feel like relationships today, like they are helping us learn and grow. And sometimes your growth journeys are going to look different. And so if one is stagnating and one is on fast track, it's not going to end up well for the couple. Right. But is that the point? Like, and so that's something like I definitely look at and consider. Like, I know when I was getting into this relationship, I was like, I need to be with someone who can grow and to grow with me. And like, that's a huge value for me, because I don't want to outgrow someone, because I typically am on that fast track. Like, you want to fast track with me? Great. Fantastic. Here we go.
Yeah, I totally get that. It makes a huge difference. Huge difference. Oh my gosh, you guys. I would love to keep having this conversation. We're already an hour in, and there's like so much more that we could talk about. So we will probably have to talk about getting you guys back on the podcast another time, because there's so much goodness here, and I love the ways that you all can speak to masculine, feminine energy, like bliss, and what's possible for us in our relationships. Before we go, I have two things. First, if you could leave our listeners with one message, one thing you most want them to remember or take away from this conversation, what would that be?
You are worthy to breathe, to sound, to move your body, and to experience the fullness of it. Like, I really want to have an invitation to try it. Try being the fullness of who you are through a somatic practice.
Beautiful.
What she said. We have it all. You have it all within you. It's all there. You were born to be blissful. You have all the things existence. You don't need to go looking for your masculine. You don't need to go looking for your feminine. It's there. Just untap it through the practices Christine was talking about. Through our somatic practices, we can tap and reclaim our joyful existence.